Hello everyone, welcome to What If Quirkless Deku was adopted by Batman and becomes Green Robin Part 2. Before we start, please go support justredhead for writing that awesome fanfic. Chapter 12 Training Arc Part 1. Izuku Wayne, would you like to be my successor? Izuku was looking at All Might with a serious face. Momo was still with Izuku while the Waynes was standing near the table in the living room. The Waynes was curious what Izuku would accept or not. To be honest, the Waynes wanted Izuku to be the successor of One for All. Momo was confused and was looking at both All Might and Izuku. She didn't know what All Might meant by being my successor. I'm sorry, but no. I don't need your power to become the #1 hero, Izuku said, serious tone. All Might was shocked at being rejected. All Might only thought of only him on being his successor, and he was the perfect person to have the power, no one else. All Might tried to find any candidate to be his successor. At this, All Might didn't know what to do, but he will ask again. Izuku, I don't know about your past, but why don't you want to have my power? Asked All Might. All I got to say is that I don't need it. I can become a hero myself without your power, and I will prove it to the world, said Izuku in confidence. The Waynes was looking at Izuku with a happy smile while Momo was still confused on what they are talking about, so she decided to ask both of them. Izuku, honey, what does he mean by being my successor, and why is he asking you, and why did you reject him? Asked Momo. Izuku sighed and knew he have to make an explanation to them. I will tell you, Momo, but promise me to keep this a secret and do not tell anyone about this, said Izuku in a serious voice. All Might was sweating bullets, but also worried if Izuku knows what he is doing by telling his future wife my secret. You can trust me, honey, I won't say a word about this, said Momo while she was looking at All Might, wondering if this had to do with him. Is it okay if I can tell her, All Might? Asked Izuku, turning back to All Might. I am fine if you do, but make sure she doesn't tell anyone about this. If anyone will find out about my secret, it can be bad, answered All Might. Izuku then turned back to Momo and looked at her straight into her eyes while Momo was looking back at him with a confused look. I'm going to tell you something about All Might and what happened to him, so don't get worried and shocked about this, and remember, don't tell anyone, said Izuku, making Momo nod in agreement. Izuku sighed as he was going to tell this story to her while All Might was kinda nervous too, but he just watched how Momo will react. The Waynes was just talking to each other on what's going to happen. All Might has an injury that is really bad for him, even if he looks fine, but he really is not. A couple years back, All Might was fighting with a villain that is extremely powerful that stabbed him into his stomach, that made him injured so bad that he was going to die, but lucky for him he survived. But the bad thing is that he has not that much time on using his power since he got that injury on him. The injury made him weak, so he can only be in his hero form for 3 hours at max, but his other form is his skinny weak body that he will transform into, but he can still use his hero form. But right now his time is going up. Basically, he is going to lose his quirk and become weak soon, so that's why he's saying that if I wanted to be his successor by giving me his power, and also his One for All have been passed down to each successor, that's why he is looking for one, but he needs to find someone that is capable to have his power, said Izuku, making Momo gasp in shock. She then turned to All Might, who was still in his hero form and looking back at Izuku. Is this true, All Might? Asked Momo in a worried voice. Yes, it's true, All Might said with a sad smile while standing in front of Izuku and Momo after a bit of silence. Momo was going to ask Izuku why he rejected him, but then something happens when she was going to say something. Poof! A loud sound made Momo look at All Might. When she looked, she was totally shocked. While looking at All Might transformed into his weak form and coughed a bit of blood from his mouth and wiped off his blood with his hand. I asked that you, All Might, said Momo, looking at him with a worried look. Yes, it is me, said All Might while staying still. Izuku was looking at him with a small frown, and made him remember when he first found out about All Might's secret. Flashback. Izuku was walking down the hallway of U.A. He reached the door to the school teacher office to speak to Aizawa about his grades and ask a question on what's going to happen next week since it's a Friday, and all once Izuku made it, he went inside to see All Might in his hero form. Then he transformed into his weak form that made Izuku gasp at him. All Might looked at him in shock that Izuku seen him in his both forms now. All Might run to the door and closed it. What are you doing here, and you can't tell no one about this, young Midoriya? Said All Might strictly. Izuku nodded at him and asked, Why are you like this, All Might? All Might just sighed since he knew that this was going to happen. To be honest, he was glad that Izuku has caught him, cause All Might was thinking if Izuku should be his successor. All Might wasn't sure, but he thinks that he is the right person to have his powers, but he will talk to him about that later. All Might went to his seat and sat on the chair and made a small frown. It's a long story, young Midoriya, so take a seat on the chair and I will explain, said All Might. Izuku just nodded and took a seat behind the table across from All Might. They talked about what happened and All Might told him everything, even about One for All. Izuku was shocked but also serious about Sai. It can be bad if All Might was dead. So after the talk, Izuku promised All Might that he won't tell anyone about this. That made All Might smile, and after a bit Izuku left back to his class. End of flashback. Izuku got out of his memory and looked at both All Might and Momo, looking at him with a curious look. Izuku sighed, and he knew what was happening. What is it you want? Said Izuku while looking at them with a little bit of a frown. Momo looked down a bit, seeing Izuku was frowning, and said, Well, we wanted to know why you didn't accept All Might's power. Why are you not accepting the power from him? I mean, he is dying, and we need someone with his power to protect the city from villains. All Might was also frowning at him not accepting this power. All Might is not trying to force Izuku on giving his powers, but he was the only one that he can trust and is already trained and is powerful for All Might's power. But All Might was also desperate. He only have about a half year to find someone with his power to help and defeat All for One, but the only problem is Izuku is not going to accept his powers and be his successor. Izuku made his fist tight and gritting his teeth without All Might and Momo noticing it. Izuku decided he won't tell them his secret, but he will tell them his fake truth. Izuku sighed and decided to tell them a lie, but he also knew that he didn't want a power, he had something different, and also Izuku finally thought of a great idea. Look, all I got to say is I don't need your power. I'm not saying this to be rude, but I don't need your power to become a hero. I can become a hero without anyone's power, and you guys need to respect my decision. And I'm so sorry, All Might, but you are just going to find someone else, so I'm deeply sorry, but that's my decision, Izuku said while cooling his fist a bit, and he calm. All Might was sad not because Izuku rejected him, he was sad because he needed to find someone with his power to give, but his time is running out, he needed to be quick, so All Might decided that he will give up. Momo was listening, but her head was down a bit. She understand All Might and why he needed Izuku, but he rejected them. Momo wished that Izuku accepted that offer, but she was just disappointed at him. Izuku then put his hands his pockets. All Might started to turn around, but then he got stopped by Izuku and faced him, while Izuku gave All Might a small smile. Look, I know that you don't have much time, but I know who can be your successor, said Izuku with a small smile and with a confident face. All Might and Momo was shocked, but then they both smiled. All Might was relieved that Izuku might know someone that can handle his problem, while Momo was also relieved that Izuku knows someone that can be All Might's successor. All Might decided to speak. So, young Midoriya, who is this person that can be my successor? Asked All Might while putting his hands on his hips with a smile of joy. Train Arc Part 2 Day 1. Izuku's POV. So, young Midoriya, who is this person that can be my successor? Asked All Might while putting his hands on his hips with a smile of joy. Present. Izuku was looking at All Might and Momo. He was nervous to tell them who it is. The reason why he is nervous is because it's Momo, the one that he loves so much, and he doesn't want her to be nervous by taking the power, and he is also scared that All Might would not choose her to be his successor, and all tbh Izuku already have a theory if All Might's in the hospital, or worse, if he dies in the near future, villains will probably come up the ranks and start to take out each hero till they get to their goal, and even the powerful villains will take over. That's the reason why Izuku is going to make Momo All Might's successor and become the new generation of One for All. All Might and Momo got ready to hear Izuku to tell him who is this person that can be All Might's successor. I want Momo to be your successor, said Izuku, making both All Might and Momo widen in shock. Momo got out of her shock and comes up next to Izuku, looking at him with a serious face. Izuku, I don't think I should be All Might's successor. I mean, I don't even know how to master my own quirk, but if I became All Might's successor, I don't think that I can have his power. I mean, I'm not strong enough, stated Momo, looking down a bit with a small frown. Izuku then graced her chin with his fingers and pulled up her face to make her look at him. Momo, you are strong. Momo, don't doubt yourself. I know you can do it. You are a strong and a brave person. Momo, I know when I were at the quirk exam that Aizawa has us. I seen your determination in your eyes. I can see it. Momo, don't doubt yourself, said Izuku at a soft, loving tone. Momo then smiled at Izuku while a bunch of tears are coming out of her eyes. Izuku then embraced her with a hug and wiped her tears away. All Might was still at the same spot with a huge smile, while looking at the two young couple hugging. Then Waynes also looked at them with a huge smile. While all of the brothers took so many pictures of Izuku and Momo and left before Izuku finds them taking pictures of him. Izuku then turned back to All Might and gave him a look means he is serious. All Might, I want Momo to be your successor. She is strong and smart, so will I accept Momo, no, my future wife, to be your successor, said Izuku, making Momo blush furiously at the end of his sentence. Of course, young Yaoyorozu can be my successor, but you are going to have to train her stamina and her body, so young Midoriya, I will excuse you from school for 3 days, and do not worry about your classes. They will all be learning a bunch of history about heroes and learn about tactics for this few 3 days, so you guys can get trained for 3 days, and also I will be giving young Yaoyorozu her new power after the 3 days are gone, said All Might with a happy face. Izuku was confused. He thought that All Might would give Momo her power on the first day or the second day, but no, after the 3 days that they get to train. All Might, said Izuku, facing towards All Might with a confused look. What is it, young Midoriya? Said All Might, looking at Izuku. Why are you going to give Momo her power after 3 days? Shouldn't she have the power on the second day of training so she can control One for All? Asked Izuku while Mono turned her face towards All Might, wanting an answer to. All Might then realized he forgot about he power and started to laugh nervously. Momo and Izuku just looked at him with a confused look, and the Waynes laughed their bass off in the background. I totally forgot about that. Will ya, on your second day I will come and meet you guys here to give you my power and leave to go do some crime, said All Might, embarrassed while he put his hands on top of his head, thinking that he was so dumb for saying that. Okay, well then I think you should go, All Might. It's been good seeing you, buddy, said Bruce while putting his hand on his shoulder, and went towards the two young couple. All Might then left and turned back into his hero form and left. With Izuku and Momo, they turned towards Bruce. What is it, Dad? Asked Izuku, looking curiously at his dad. You guys are going to train, right? Asked Bruce. Izuku was going to say something, but Momo cut off Izuku. Yes, we are, Mr. Wayne, said Momo respectfully. Oh, sweetie, call me Mom and my husband Dad since you are Izuku's future wife, said Selena with a nice and motherly tone towards Momo. Momo and Izuku blushes heavily at what Izuku Mom said to him. Honey, I think it's time to let them go train, said Bruce, kissing Selena in the lips while Selena giggled. After a bit of talking to Izuku's mother and father about their training, Izuku and Momo went into a bear-by forest. That is the best way to train for Momo and Izuku. So honey, what will I be doing for training? Asked Momo with a loving voice. Well, for you I want you to do 1 quick lap around the forest, and then do 20 push-ups and sit-ups and do another lap, but then add 10 each to both sit-ups and push-ups, and also do another lap. Keep on doing that for half of the day, and next I will meet you here after I'm done with my training, said Izuku, coming close to Momo and giving her a passionate kiss. Momo returned the kiss and lets her tongue enter his mouth. After a while of kissing each other, Izuku decided to go and do his training while Momo does hers. With Momo training, Momo was in the middle of the forest. She decided to start her training. She started by jogging the first lap and did 20 push-ups and 20 sit-ups. She was already panting a bit, but she knows that she needed to continue her training, so she gets up, finishing her push-ups and sit-ups, and ran another lap, but this time she did 30 push-ups and 30 sit-ups. She got up panting more and grabbed her bottle of water and drank some of it while gulping all the water down her throat, and went back to her training. It had been an hour of training, so she decided to take a 10-minute break and then go back to resume her training with Izuku. Izuku sighs as he went to a part of the forest and found his secret shed that no one knew of. Once Izuku reached the front door, he opened the door and closed the door and locked it, and he started to walk into this secret room that had something special inside of, locked behind the room like a secret entrance. Inside the shed have 3 rooms inside of it. It have a kitchen and a training room and Izuku's secret office and his secret entrance where something is there that he keeps it a huge secret. Once Izuku went to the secret door, he unlocked it. With his code, once he put his code on, he went inside. In the inside of the room the lights was okay and there were a gear inside of the glass protection, while the room looks like an office. Behind the glass that was protecting the gear was a desk and a table where Izuku usually calmed down and figure stuff out on his own without anyone bothering him. Izuku made his way and took out the sacred gear and put it on his wrist. When he put it on, the sacred gear started to glow a purple light that made Izuku close his eyes from the brightness. Once the light was finished shining, Izuku looked at the sacred gear on his arm. It had a purple gem in the middle and the fingers and the rest were black, but in some parts are purple. It's like Issei's Red Dragon Emperor gauntlet, but instead it lasts purple and black. Izuku remembered the day that he got this from a mission that he took when he was younger. Flashback. Izuku was in the middle of a fight with these crooks that were hiding a bunch of citizens into one of the cabins in the U.S. Izuku was currently fighting the few remaining people that were the villains that tried to take hostiles and kill them to get their quirks. Bang! A gunshot was heard. The one that pulled the trigger was the guy with a jacket that have a gang symbol. When he shot, Izuku quickly dodged the bullet and went straight running towards the guy that tried to shoot him. Once Izuku was near him, her soccer punched his stomach and knocked him out. Bang! Another gunshot was coming towards Izuku. He did a backflip and dodged the bullet and used his small knives and throws it at the last guy and officially killed him. Izuku wasn't a fan of killing, but in a situation like this, then he will kill them even if it's a problem. He would still have killed them. After contacting Bruce and telling him the mission was finished, he quickly went out of the alleyway and went towards an abandoned building. Once he reached the front entrance, he felt a powerful presence. It was not normal. No quirkless human can sense a power from a building unless if they have a quirk that can sense stuff, but Izuku was shocked that he can sense a power coming in that building. Izuku was determined on finding that thing and wonder if it was a person that was letting in amount of power and was doing something bad in there. That's the only thing that Izuku thought at the moment, so Izuku got his belt ready with his knives just in case if the guy decided to attack him. Izuku went inside the abandoned building. He went inside further and found a room with the power in the room. Made him kinda scared, but once he opened the door there was no one there, but the power was coming from a handled glove or something, Izuku guessed, but he was shocked at how much power it was given. Never in his life there was such things as objects that have power in them. Izuku went closer to the gear in the table. Once he was right near the gear, it was a bit scary for him, but he decided that he is going to figure what this thing is. He grabbed the sacred gear and examined it. No one from this world would know what this is, but after a while of holding it, the gear growled light and went on his arm. Izuku was amazed at what he is seeing, but he had to keep this a huge secret from everyone so they don't find out what it is and try to get it from him. So Izuku took it with him back to his home and found his shed, putting his sacred gear in a glass on top of a table near his desk. After that he went out to meet his father and talked to him about the mission. End of flashback. Izuku went towards the glass that had the sacred gear inside of it. He grabbed the key from under the table and unlocked the glass on the top and grabbed the sacred gear. Izuku learned how the sacred gear works, but how to use the power from the sacred gear, well, he needed to learn how it works. "It's time to do my training," said Izuku with confidence while his fist was up in the sky. Training Arc Part 3 Day 1-2. "It's time to do my training," said Izuku with confidence while his fist was up in the sky. Third POV. With Izuku. Izuku left his office and went straight into his gym. It was not a normal gym, or you can say training area. If you use a quirk, and it's powerful, it won't destroy the inside of the training room cause it have a special barrier that can protect the inside and walls from quirks or powers. Izuku walked inside and placed his water bottle on the table and went to the middle of the room and started to do a cross position sitting down on the floor, and he started to meditate. Even though he knows how to summon the sacred gear, he still need to unlock the dragon inside, but he doesn't know about the dragon. All he was trying to do is to gain control of the power. Once he was meditating, he was pulled into his subconscious. Inside of the sacred gear. Izuku opens his eyes. While looking around him, he can only see darkness. Izuku didn't know what was going on and where he was at. "Where am I at?" said Izuku out loud while trying his best to stay calm and to try to figure out what he was doing in his subconscious. For a couple of minutes had passed. Izuku was getting kind of irritated cause he had been stuck in his mind and trying to figure out to try to get out of his mind. "Okay, what the actual buck, why am I here, and for bucking's sakes how the hell do I get out of here?" said Izuku in an irritated tone. Then Izuku can see there was something in the shadows right in front of him, so Izuku got ready to fight. "Show yourself," yelled Izuku while being cautious around him. "Calm your base down, boy," said the dragon, scaring Izuku a bit. Then Izuku becomes more impatient. "Who are you and why aren't you showing yourself?" said Izuku, narrowing his eyes at the big figure in the shadows and looking straight at him carefully, and making his fighting stance, and just in case if he started to attack him so he can be ready to fight back. "Don't worry, boy, I am going to show myself and tell you who you am, but first I need to know, do you seek for my power?" said the dragon, making Izuku confused and letting his guard down cause what he dragon said. "What do you mean by that?" said Izuku, putting his arms down and looks up at the tall and big figure of a dragon. The dragon sighs and then looks at Izuku with a strong face. "What I mean is, do you want to have my power?" yelled the dragon, making Izuku flinch. Izuku then got the words he was saying to him. "How can I be so stupid? The dragon wants to give me his powers since he is the one that was stuck in this sacred gear," thought Izuku. "Yes, I want your power, now show yourself," yelled Izuku. "Finally you got it, boy," said the dragon, coming out of the shadows. The dragon had black scales and purple claws with purple eyes, and it was a massive dragon with purple wings. While the scales around the wings are black, it's like great red, but instead it had black scales around his body, and his eyes and wings and claws are purple. Izuku looked at the dragon with an awe expression. The dragon was smirking at Izuku while he was looking at him. With Momo in the real world. Momo, it's been a couple of hours that she had started her training. She improved her quirk more. She can now make weapons and med kits faster, and one of her new discoveries about her quirk is that she can now make any type of grenades and other type of bombs. Not only that, she can create different type of grenades. She can make poison grenades, but she hadn't gone far though, but she at least improved her quirk. In the past she can create stuff for 5 minuets fast, but now she improved her stamina. She can create more than less than a minute. Of course other stuff that she creates can take a bit longer, but Momo can improve that in the future. Right now Momo was tired. She was laying on the grass leaning on the tree exhausted. Momo was going to take a 1-hour break to figure out what she needs to improve, since she is going to be the successor of One for All. Momo have doubts about herself, but Izuku was right. If she didn't accept All Might's power, then he wouldn't find a successor. If he would die or be in the hospital, things would go into chaos. The villains can start their move on then, so Momo really didn't have a choice, but she was glad. Momo wanted to be a hero for a reason. She wanted to save as many people as she can. That's not the only reason why she wants to be a hero. It's because of Izuku. He made her have her determination to become a hero. Even if she doubted herself in the past, he made her who she am today, and she will do her best to become a hero and save many people in the future. So Momo was so determined on training and becoming a true hero like Izuku was. After an hour had passed, Momo got up and went back to the middle of the forest. Now she was going to improve her stamina, so Momo started to run more laps, then do more push-ups and sit-ups, and after she finished sit-ups and push-ups she started training on her fighting position. She put one of her feet behind her and the other one in front of the other, and put her hands towards her with both of her hands and makes a fist. Then she walked toward the tree and started to punch the tree with one hit. When she punched the tree it hurt her hand, but she knew that she needs to get stronger. She then created a punching bag and put the string on top of the bag and hanged it up on the tree really tight, so it can stay still. Momo started to punch the bag with 2 hits, then she hits the sides and starts to kick with her legs and start to keep on punching the bag until she gets tired. Over an hour she was exhausted. It's been almost half of the day, so Momo decided to go back home and rest since she finished her training. Momo was wondering what Izuku was doing for his training, but Momo got that thought out of her head and went to her and Izuku's bed and slept. Back with Izuku in his sacred gear's subconscious. "So you're my new partner," said the dragon while looking at him with a normal expression. Izuku was still looking at the dragon and looking around his whole body in amazement. Izuku heard what the dragon said, and Izuku then decided to ask the dragon something. So what do you mean that I'm your partner? I kinda don't understand. This and understand what this is in my right arm, said Izuku while pointing at the sacred gear, and looked at the dragon while trying to figure out what's happening. Well boy, I'm going to have to explain a lot to you, said the dragon while sighing at Izuku. Izuku was confused on what the dragon said, but he is going to let him explain so he can understand on what the dragon is talking about. First, am Ebos, the black dragon of domination, and the thing in your right arm is called a sacred gear, and am inside of the gear cause some powerful god had put my soul inside of the sacred gear, and of course I am, well, the sacred gear is in a different dimension, so basically you're my very first host in this dimension, and my first host because in my dimension does not have many people that can have my sacred gear or even handle. And for the other question, I am going to be your partner since you now possess my sacred gear and my powers, said the dragon, giving an explanation to Izuku. Izuku was in shock and trying to analyze the words that the dragon named Ebos just said. Once Izuku got out of shock, he decided to accept the power that Ebos had is offering him to have his power. Izuku then looks at the dragon, then he was going to say something to him. So I guess we are going to be partners then, huh? Said Izuku while putting his right hand on his leg, leaning, and while his other arm did the same. Yap, so what's is your name, boy? Said Ebos, looking at Izuku straight in the eyes. Izuku was nervous, but he was determined on getting stronger and want to control the power that Ebos is giving him. My name is Izuku Wayne, said Izuku in a determined tone. Nice name, kid, and now you probably want to know, when are you going to get your power? Well, you already have it. And if you are confused, what I mean is when you put the sacred gear on you, it is now belong to you. You cannot take it off or anything. It's now stuck into your arm. So you don't have to worry about getting the power, and for your training we will start tomorrow, and I will explain my power to you tomorrow. So now you should try not to train cause tomorrow will be hell for you, Izuku Wayne. Now I'm going to sleep, and if you want to contact me you can say my name in your head and I will wake up and answer you. Okay, now good night, said Ebos while going to sleep. Okay, Izuku said to himself. I probably should go home since it's past noon, and it's already night. I don't want to make Momo worried, thought Izuku. Out of the Izuku's subconscious. Izuku got up from meditating, and Izuku then checked the time. It was 7:30. He needed to get home to go rest since Ebos wanted him to go and rest cause he said himself that his training is going to be hell. So Izuku somehow make the sacred gear to disappear from his arm. Once that happened, he would learn on how to summon the sacred gear and make the sacred gear disappear. With his training, Izuku then started to go home. Once Izuku got to the door at his house, he opened it and locked the door behind him, and went straight to the kitchen where Momo was sitting and eating her food. Momo then noticed Izuku was here. She then looked at Izuku and smiles at him. Hey honey, how was training? Said Momo in a sweet voice. It was good actually, I learned more fighting techniques, said Izuku while lying to her a bit. Izuku went to Momo and kisses her in the lips. Momo then suddenly kissed him back. After a couple of seconds they pulled out from the kiss, and Izuku then sat down next to her and starting eating. Once they were done, Momo and Izuku cleaned up the kitchen and went to their room. Momo went to her and Izuku's closet and changed into her nightgown and went to the right side of the bed that she usually sleep at. Izuku just took off his pants and shirt and went to the left side of the bed and cuddles up and wrapped his arms around her, and his hands resting on her stomach. Momo was smiling and fallen asleep. Izuku did the same. Tomorrow was going to be hell for Izuku, and for Momo it will be a training of her new power. Training Arc Part 4 Day 2-3. Tomorrow was going to be hell for Izuku, and for Momo it will be a training of her new power. Current time with Izuku and Momo. Izuku was with Momo cuddling with each other. Momo has her arms around Izuku's neck while her head is on Izuku's bare chest. Izuku had his chin on top of Momo's head, and his arms was wrapped around her waist. When the alarm clock ringed, Izuku and Momo got up with a tired face. Izuku was rubbing his eyes while Momo was stretching her arms. Then Izuku looked at Momo and kissed her in the lips real fast, making Momo blush. Morning, my princess, said Izuku with a loving tone and smiling at Momo. Momo was blushing a bit and smiled back at Izuku. Morning, my prince. Izuku had a small blush on his face, making Momo giggle. Momo always think her Izuku is so cute. When he blushes it makes him adorable. Sometimes he hides away his blush when she makes him, or says something that will make him blush, and he is very shy about letting her see him blush. After a couple of minutes they both changed. Momo was wearing a lady's sport shirt that was black and hides her big breast under the shirt with black sweats that fits her legs, while she was also wearing black shoes and her hair was in a ponytail. Izuku was wearing a plain gray shirt with black shorts and training shoes. Third POV. Izuku and Momo both finished changing. Both of them went into the front door and was going to leave until they heard a knock. Who would want to come visit us? It's like 6 o'clock in the morning and our parents still at their houses sleeping and they wouldn't bother driving 8 minutes to come down here, said Momo out loud while Izuku was looking at her with the same question and a curious face. Izuku then opens the door to see All Might. Izuku was a bit surprised that All Might was early, but he must been in a hurry. Hello young Wayne and young Momo, said All Might in his hero form and with a big smile. All Might, why are you here early? I thought that you said that you were coming at 1 p.m. today, said a very confused Momo while having her arms crossed. That's a good question, young Momo. Well, to be honest, I have to do hero work later, but right now I can only use my human form for another second because I am at my limit, said All Might. Then suddenly a bright light come into view. Momo and Izuku had to cover their eyes. After the light was gone, Momo and Izuku both took their hands off their eyes. All Might was coughing some blood out from his mouth while spiting the blood out with a napkin and threw it into the trash in front of their house. Both Momo and Izuku frowned and then looks at All Might with a soft smile on their faces. So that's why I'm here early, so may I come in and give you my power, young Wayne and young Momo? Asked All Might with a small smile while waiting for his answer. Momo and Izuku nodded at him and letting All Might inside they walked into the living room and was sitting on the couch. Momo was sitting next to Izuku and All Might was sitting across from them and was looking at each other being silent until Izuku broke the silence. So All Might, are we going to be talking about Momo's new power and being your successor, and also do you have any tips for Momo so she can train in a good way for using one for all and combining her own quirk with one for all? Asked Izuku with his hands resting on the couch and was leaning against the couch cushions. Correct, young Wayne, we are going to be talking about Momo's power, and I'm going to give her power, but I'm going to have a serious talk about what's going to happen, and yes, I do have tips for her training, said All Might while sitting down and resting while looking at Izuku. Okay, then let's start. So what do you need to tell us? Asked Izuku while wrapping around his arm around Momo's neck, and then Momo rested her head against Izuku's chest. All Might was smiling a bit, and then he decided to be serious. Okay, what I'm going to tell you is to not go out of this room. Let me start by telling you guys this: I'm not the only one who have one for all in this world. There is another person that have one for all. His name is All for One. It's a name for him, and he is the leader of the villain league, and he's one of the most powerful villain right now. That's how I got this injury in my stomach from him. But when I give you this power, young Momo, you are going to have to train and especially be ready for the time comes when you face All for One. There are 2 reasons why I'm saying this. I don't think I'm going to be able to handle 2 hours a day cause I'm getting weaker and weaker, but the moment, and don't be afraid young Momo, you have young Wayne to help you out on this journey. And I am sure that you guys will be good heroes one day, said All Might while giving them a huge smile in his weak form. It was awkward, but then Momo and Izuku both smiled. But also they were shocked, and getting this info in their mind, Momo was scared and started to shake cause she is going to have to face one for all. But then Izuku noticed this and put his hands on her shoulder to make her remember that he would also be there for her when she faces All for One. Momo then smiles at Izuku and Izuku smiles back in a loving way. All Might was happy for them, but he had to interrupted their special moment. So young Yaoyorozu, are you ready to get your powers? Asked All Might while looking at the 2. Momo looked at Izuku then looked at All Might. Yes, I am ready for my powers and being your successor, said Momo. All Might nodded his head and got UPU. So did Momo and Izuku. All Might went towards Momo and looks at her while Momo looked at him, and Izuku was right next to Momo and the side of her and looked at All Might, curious on how he can transfer his power and giving it to another person. So Izuku just paid attention on what's going to happen. Okay, young Yaoyorozu, I'm going to put my hand and touch your wrist, and I'm going to release my power and give it to you so you can be my successor. And if you guys are wondering, no, I am going to still have my power, but it's fading though, so yeah, and once I'm done with this, you guys should start training well, mostly young Yaoyorozu. No offense, young Midoriya, said All Might, making Momo and Izuku nod their heads. All Might grabbed her wrist and slowly make energy in his hands and transfers his power into Momo. Once that was finished, Momo was confused cause she didn't know if she had the power yet. All Might took his hands off her wrist and stepped back. That was it, said Momo while looking at All Might. Izuku was also more confused and began to become more curious. Yes, it is. It will take a couple of hours or so, maybe earlier, to gain or to control your quirk, and remember this, you will only be able to use 5% of your power. Anything up or you will damage your arms, so if I would you should train to at least control to 50% of power. All right, I'm going to go. I got other business to take over. See ya guys and good luck, said All Might and left through the door and leaving Momo and Izuku to their thoughts. After a bit of thinking, Momo went to her training place while Izuku decided to train with his sacred gear and learn how to get power and become powerful while being the host of a powerful dragon. With Momo was having a bit of a hard time with the power, so she then decided to try a new plan. The new plan was being to activate her new power by meditating and try to make her new power flow through her body and going to let it get used to her body. So Momo then went on the grass and put her elbows resting on her legs, that is in the cross form, and putting her 2 fingers touching the tip of their other finger while letting the power flowing through her. After a bit of meditating, she finally figured out on to use her new power. Momo went up to the punching bag and puts her right arm back while making a fist and clenching her fist and letting 5% of 1 for all going through her arm, and as she released her arm and punched the bag in the middle and make the bag hitting trees and destroy them in seconds. After a couple of seconds, the bag fell down. The bag went about 9 miles. Momo was shocked but then got determined on mastering her power, but she remembered what All Might said to use 1% of power, and controlling each percent of power that she was going to use. Momo continued her training on using her 1 for all and doing a couple of exercises for both of her powers become 1. She found out that if she makes a weapon it can be stronger than a normal weapon, but the sad part that if she gives it to another person it would not be affected of 1 for all, so only she can enchant her own weapons and use them to her advantage. Robin the Black Dragon Emperor. The final day of training with Izuku. Today was Izuku's day of training that was going to be hell for him, so he is going to have to stay up overnight and not come home on the 3rd day. Izuku told Momo about him training all night. Momo got a bit worried, but Izuku told her that he will call her if anything happens. Momo got relieved and then smiled, and they give each other one last passionate kiss and gone their separate ways. Izuku was walking down the path of his secret shed. Once he reached the shed, he opened the door and closed and locked the door behind him while going to the training area and sit down on a chair on thinking how he was going to train, cause all he knew he is going to learn new magic, but not from this world though. Izuku was also waiting for Ebos to wake up and tell him about his power and how to gain and master his gear or power. After a couple of minutes, Izuku was still sitting on the chair and still waiting for Ebos to help him train. Izuku kinda gotten a bit frustrated waiting for Ebos, so he decided to wake him up. Ebos, wake up, I need to start my training, said Izuku with an impatient tone. Kid, and already up? I've been awake this whole time. You should have just called me if you were that impatient, replied Ebos in a neutral tone. Izuku's sweat dropped and looked at the floor in embarrassment. So you was awake the whole time? Said Izuku with a confused tone and in embarrassment. Yeah, but we should start your training first. I need to tell you about a couple of things about having my power and sacred gear, said Ebos. While Izuku nodded at him, and getting more comfortable on the chair and paying attention what Ebos have to say. Okay, well, the first thing about having my power and gear is stamina, so I see you have hood stamina, but you need to increase a bit more and increase your magic. Basically what I mean by that is that you will have to start increasing your magic. I know this world have quirks, but this magic is not from this world, and it's different, so the magic I am teaching you is part of my world, and I am going to have to teach you how to fight with the magic on hand-to-hand combat, and use it with weapons too, and the sacred gear will also combine with the gear too. So we should start your training. I will talk to you about Balance Breaker when you are about to achieve it later on. So for your training I want you to start by using Black Dragon's slaying magic that you awakened and start practicing fighting with it, and you will learn techniques that you will make up like strikes with your hands or Iron Dragon Fist, something like that, and I want you to make up the training yourself and making your own techniques with the Black Flame yourself, said Ebos, making Izuku nod his head, making him understand what the dragon was saying. Okay then, said Izuku, getting up and standing in the middle of the room and made a fighting stance, and he felt the power flowing through his body, and he lit his fist on flames and said, "Black Fire Dragon Fist," said Izuku while aiming straight at the punching bag and made the bag sent flying, breaking the door with flames, damaging the punching bag. Izuku was impressed how the attack worked, and how powerful the attack sent the bag flying away towards the end of the room. What made the move powerful? It was because the flames that made the attack stronger. It can damage skin and make the punch hard, so if he can make moves like that, then he can make it with his weapons too. So Izuku got his sword that he had been using that Wayne had given him. He added some energy to his sword and made a slash, but sadly nothing happened. Izuku was confused if he can use the power in his fist, but why doesn't it work on his sword? The reason why it's not working cause the power can't flow into the sword because it's just a regular sword that is in this world, said Ebos, making Izuku more confused and making him a bit irritated. What do you mean it won't work with this sword? Said Izuku with a confused expression. What I mean, Izuku, is that this magic will not combine into this world's swords. Even if it's a quirk-made sword, it will not be able to combine the power into the sword, and that is why I am going to give you something that I will give you, but it have to be 2 weapons of your choice, since I only be able to make 2, since it's the only weapons I can make, right? Now, said Ebos, making Izuku, raising one of his brows up. So are these 2 weapons are not from this world, then how are you going to give it to me since you are inside of the sacred gear? Said Izuku while sitting down on a chair for a bit, taking rest from his training. Well, you are correct about the weapons. They are indeed from another world that I was in, and for the second question, I think it's stupid. Just because I am in a sacred gear I cannot help you. Well, you are actually wrong. I can create weapons. Well, only 2 for now, but that is basically it for the creating part. Also listen very carefully, what I am going to tell you is going to be important, said Ebos. Izuku then decided to listen to him carefully. It's about your training and your balance breaker, said Ebos while using a calm tone. Balance breaker? Said Izuku in confusion. The dragon then sighed and then started to explain to Issei about the balance breaker. A balance breaker is basically armor, but it's not an ordinary armor. It's a dragon armor that cannot break except for your enemies in the other world, and don't worry about that, the time will come soon later in the future, but not now. I am going to continue. A balance breaker is armor, and have their ability to increase your speed and dragon slaying magic that you can use, and there are more attack moves once you achieve balance breaker, and there are many forms of balance breaker forms. Think of it like it's a level 1 armor or a level 2 armor. The power will keep on increasing power. But don't say it's not powerful. All of them are powerful and have different type of slayer magic and armor that will be different. Now for the weapons, you will have to use trace on to create a strong sword, but I rather you to not do that yet, since I am going to give you 2 weapons to use for your balance breaker, and without it, and I will teach you a lot more magic instead of slayer magic, explained Ebos, making Issei shocked since he doesn't know there are more stuff with this sacred gear can do. Izuku had only have one thing in his mind. How do I achieve balance breaker? Asked Izuku, wanting to get stronger. You have to train, and you will able to achieve balance breaker by maintaining your stamina, and in the end you will be able to achieve but not master it yet, but I can tell you are really close to balance breaker, Izuku, said Ebos while Izuku nodded his head, being determined to master his sacred gear. Time skip. It was 12 o'clock in midnight. Izuku had been training all day, and he was a bit tired, but thanks to his stamina he'd been able to still train. Izuku had achieved balance breaker and able to use balance breaker for at least 2 weeks. That was his maximum, but he still needs to get it mastered so he can use it for multiple battles if there are multiple enemies that are coming for him. Izuku had learned re-equip magic from Ebos, and also he had learned that there is multiple balance breakers, so now he can have multiple forms of balance breaker of each different level, so they can get stronger and stronger. If you get to the maximum level, of course it will be hard, but it will be good power to have. Issei also had learned summoning swords from the other world. He had fully achieved Excalibur, called the Holy Dragon Sword. It's a strong type of sword that can be used to able to transform into daggers while being able to make destruction while slashing. Kinda like a sword when it's being slashing at someone, able to use swords that can throw a magic attack and making it slash someone in their arms and cutting off their arms, kinda like a bow and arrow thing, but you can slash from far away and make the magic through the fire slayer magic coming fast to the enemies. Izuku had also learned a thing he can do, a move with the sacred gear called Dragon Shot, where Issei can send and throw a huge ball of energy to the villains or enemies and defeat them with a painful blast, and even evaporate their bodies while killing them. Izuku also had been able to master all of his slaying abilities like the Lighting Slayer with the Green Inferno slaying magic so Izuku was done for training since it was the last day of training for him, so he can at least relax on the next day since he doesn't have to go to school after tomorrow. So Izuku then started to walk to his and Momo's house. With Momo, she was currently in her room resting since she had a long day of training, and she remembered that her Izuku told her that tomorrow will just be a relaxed day for them. Momo had finished her training an hour ago. She had been able to use 40% of her power, and also been able to combine her power with her weapons, making the weapons more lethal. So without a doubt she is already strong enough, but she still needs to train her fighting style cause she currently lacks stamina so she couldn't slack off, but since this is her last day of training she will be focusing on that later in her classes. Third POV. Izuku unlocks the door to his house and closed the door behind him while locking it, and went up inside his room to see Momo asleep. Izuku started smiling at her and thinking on how cute she is when she is sleeping and decided to go to sleep with her. Izuku got into the bed and kissed her forehead that made Momo smile in her dreams while snuggling closer to Izuku and wraps her arms around Izuku while putting her head on his chest while feeling warmth. Izuku wrapped his arms around Momo and put his chin on top of her head in a protective manner, and fell asleep also feeling warmth. A date and making love. Third POV. Izuku and Momo had finally finished training. Right now they were in the living room watching TV for a bit since today was supposed to be their last day of training, but since they trained hard they decided to use the last day as a break. Izuku was sitting in the couch with his legs on top of the second part of the couch that turned into a bed. He had his arm around Momo protectively. Momo had her head resting on Izuku's chest and having a blanket on both of them while they cuddle and watching the movie. It has been a couple of hours since the movie had ended. Momo and Izuku decided to clean up the area since they had a mess. Izuku put the couch bed back into an actual couch again while Momo was folding the blankets and putting them into the closet in the hallway near the living room, where Izuku was almost finished with cleaning the table and vacuuming the floor to get the dust and dirt out. After a couple hours of cleaning, Izuku found Momo sitting in the couch watching TV. Izuku walked towards the couch and sit right next to Momo. "Did you finish cleaning the other room, baby girl?" said Izuku in a loving tone. When Izuku had sat down, Momo quickly rested her head on Izuku's chest, making him smile, and he let out a soft giggle. Momo just smiled and feeling the warmth on his chest. "Yes, I am, honey," said Momo, answering Izuku's question. There is nothing to do today since me and Momo had finished training. I should take her on a date since we haven't been on a date for a while," thought Izuku while turning his head towards Momo. "Hey Momo, would you like to go on a date with me today?" said Izuku with a soft, loving tone and a small smile on his face. Momo turned towards Izuku and then smiles back at him. "Of course, I would love to go on a date with you. Let me get ready and you get ready and meet in the living room 10 minutes. Said Momo happily while getting up and went to their room to grab some clothes. When she got her clothes from the room, she went to the bathroom in the hallway to get ready. Izuku got up from the couch and also grabbed some clothes on and went into the bathroom in their room that they have. Momo decided to wear a gray small shirt that reveals her stomach and her breast, and she also put on a red skirt that fits her perfectly, same for the top. After she was done dressing herself, she did her hair into a small ponytail. Once she was finished getting ready, she went into the dining room where the door is at and taken a seat on the couch. "I hope my Izuku likes what I am wearing for our date," said Momo in her thoughts while being curious on what Izuku is going to wear for their. With Izuku. Izuku was still in the room changing. He had a hard time to find something to wear on their date, but he finally found some clothes that will look good on him. He decided to wear black pants and his normal red shoes with a light gray shirt that fits his whole upper body. He also put on a green hoodie that also fits his body perfectly. Once Izuku was done changing, he went out of the bathroom and went into the dining room where Momo was waiting for him. Izuku had made it to the living room and took Momo's hand and opened the door for her and him. They walked out of the house and went into Izuku's car and they drove to the movie theater. Once they got there, they went inside and watched a horror film called Michael Moro. They got popcorn and soda and went towards their seats in the room watching the movie. In the middle of the movie, Momo got scared. Izuku wrapped his arm around her, making her calm down, while she leans her head on the movie with a small smile after reaching the ending Of the movie, Momo liked how the two victims who were caught by Michael Moro got together at the end, since she and him had to protect each other. After the movie ended, they went to the park and sat down near the beautiful pond in the middle of the trees. Izuku smiles and wrapped his arms around her while Momo snuggles into Izuku's chest. I love this spot, Suku, and I love cuddling with you in this beautiful scenery, said Momo, calling Izuku by his nickname she gave her while giving a small blush on her face, and snuggled more into him. Me too, Momo, me too, said Izuku, playing with Momo's hair and patting her head while playing with her hair, and his other arm was wrapped around her waist. I love you, Zuku, said Momo with a loving tone while looking at the pond with ducks swimming at. I love you too, Momo, said Izuku, also looking at the pond with the ducks and frogs are at. After a couple of hours staying at the pond, they got up and went back to the car and sat inside the seats. Once they got in the car, Izuku starts up the car while buckling his seatbelt on, while Momo did the same. Izuku then steps on the pedal and starts to drive back to their house. Right now they were passing by some houses that is near Udata School. They drove by the school and turned into the left lane and passed some couple of streets, and finally arrived to their house. Izuku parked his car into the driveway and stopped the car while taking the keys out, putting it into his pockets. Momo has gotten out of the car and unlocks the door to the house, with Izuku following behind her, and closed the door behind them. Momo turned around and looked at Izuku with a small smile. Wait here, Iza, I got a surprise for you, said Momo, walking up the stairs while swaying her base that Izuku can see. Izuku looked at her base swaying back and forth. He blushed and bit his lip. He wanted her so bad, and he have an urge to go and slap her base and buck her here and now. Momo went up the stairs and smiles to herself and walking towards the room. Once she was in the room, she went inside the closet and looked for something really hexy to put on and gave a good view for her Izuku can see. After a while, Izuku made it up to the room where Momo was at. Once he entered their room, Izuku had a huge blush and rushed towards where Momo was laying at the end. They had hex and felt many pleasure and fallen asleep while making love.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.